I must rise above the flames.
Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I'm Lupinefiasco. This is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today we are playing our favorite FaB Rising Rebellion. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games I played on the Talishar.net client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my games. I will talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now, then compare that to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the list I'm playing here or try it for yourself, there is a FaB deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see every new episode of Daily FaB Gameplay in your video feed. There is also a link to my Blue Sky, my Discord, and my Patreon, where you can get access to the matchup guide for this deck and for all of my decks forever. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into the action. Another week, another chance to run FaB through a gamut of really tier 2 heroes. Again, where I think he belongs, but some people are having success with the hero. He can definitely put out good numbers, so still worth experimenting with, but I think he is quite a ways from tier S, tier A. We went to Kayo here. We won the die roll and chose to go second, so we will ban our Phoenix Flame. Our opening hand is not good. We're really hoping that Kayo attacks us to give us the chance to block. If I can block with Art of Dragon Fire, that is ideal. Display Loyalty is the only card in this hand that I really want, although Tenacity is good for pitching for Searing Emberblade. We just get a Mandible Claw from Kayo. Maybe there is a wind-up discard after this to give the Claw go again, but it's unlikely that Kayo would have a follow-up for it or risk going down on Arsenal. So we'll block with Art of Dragonfire and immediately draw into a new one. This hand is terrible. And the fact that we are playing Dragon Scalar Flight Path rather than Snapdragon Scalar is usually good, but in a case like this, it is detrimental. If we had Snapdragons here, we could take a line of playing Display Loyalty, then using Snapdragons to give it go again, pitching Tenacity for Demonstrate Devotion, making a Fealty, and then using the Fealty to make Art of Dragonfire Draconic, deal 14 damage off of 4 cards, and then activate FaB, pick up an Arsenal, the Phoenix Flame. But we can't do that because we don't have snaps, and I don't regret it. It just means that in situations like this, we're not in a good position. Maybe at the end of Kayo's last turn, we could have pitched Tenacity and Demonstrate Devotion to activate FaB and pick up our Phoenix Flame, but there is a high density of starters in our deck. I don't feel bad about not making that play, but we do get punished by not having the Phoenix Flame, which, although it would attack for 0 in this case, is at least a Draconic starter. So instead we're going to take a really bad line, which is to pitch to FaB, and we'll pitch our Tenacity, and it's either Demonstrate Devotion or Art of Dragonfire, and then play the Phoenix Flame, play Display Loyalty, make a Fealty, Arsenal, the last card in our hand. And I want that last card to be Art of Dragonfire because I am making a Fealty. So as soon as we get something like a starter, a blue, and another either extender or a second starter in there, we have a floating resource so we can activate FaB for free, play the Phoenix Flame, then use our Fealty and play Art of Dragonfire for 7 points. So I want to Arsenal that Dragonfire. We draw into another stinker here. I mean, the deck is just not functioning the way we want it to. Brand with Cinderclaw does not turn on Blaze Headlong. We cannot get the point out of Breaking Point, or we can't get the Rupture effect because we don't have a way to make our turn that long. This isn't even something that could really be fixed by Snapdragon Scalars. I guess technically it could. We could play Blaze Headlong, snap it, pitch the play Brand with Cinderclaw, and this hand just doesn't function either way. So what we can do with it is block. And we're going to need to get some armor, because we can't play Loyalty Beyond the Grave on Command and Conquer. But unless Kayo has another Command and Conquer, we will be able to play Loyalty on whatever the follow-up to this CNC is. So I definitely want to block with my Breaking Point, because I really can't get value out of it right now. I cannot block with Loyalty Beyond the Grave. I don't want to block with Blaze Headlong because I want to play it on my turn. It is at least a 1-card 4, and it keeps our fealty around by being Draconic. So the question is, are we blocking with Brand with Cinderclaw, or are we blocking with Flamescale Furnace? And I want to block with Brand with Cinderclaw. It being yellow means that we get 2 points out of it on offense or defense, and because it isn't enabling our Blaze Headlong to do anything, I would rather just hold on to my armor in a hand like this, where it's really bad. We get kind of lucky. On the one hand, Kayo has the windup to make Agility and Might, which is bad for us. On the other hand, he only gets 4 cards. Aurora being a thing really shows how power crept Kayo is, spending a whole card to get Go Again, where Aurora can spend a whole card to get Go Again and attack for 2 with Go Again. One of the reasons that I don't think that Kayo really has any juice in this upcoming meta, or in the current meta even. So we do get blocks on that Blaze Headlong. The hand that we draw into is better, certainly. We found all of our Draconic starters. We just really wish that these 2 Oath of Loyalties were not in the same hand at the same time. Kayo's about to undo this attack, so I'm not super committed to talking through this hand right now, though we will do that in just a bit, because we have an interesting decision to make on whether we are blocking with Oath of Loyalty or whether we are pitching it, the second one. We're definitely playing the first one. So we've got an E-Strike coming for 6 with Go Again. The mode chosen was draw a card to take advantage of the agility. I pretty snap no blocked here. That isn't because I'm committed to keeping this hand, it is because Kayo has 2 cards in hand. There will be a follow-up to this E-Strike. I guess, technically, Kayo could discard another wind-up and then arsenal the last card in his hand. So we can talk about what this 5-card hand does and why I want to block with Oath of Loyalty. So Oath of Loyalty's text says that it can only be played as the first action in your turn, meaning that once we play the first one, the second one can only be used for pitch or arsenal. So we open with Oath of Loyalty for 4 Go Again. We then have a choice of pitching Brand with Cinderclaw to attack with Searing Emberblade, or we can just attack with Brand with Cinderclaw. If we attack with Brand with Cinderclaw, we then attack with Rising Resentment. We have 3 Draconic Chain Links. We can activate FaB to pick up and play the Phoenix Flame. The choice between pitching Brand to attack with Emberblade or playing Brand, then playing Phoenix Flame later, the overall damage is not impacted because we are either getting 3 from our Emberblade and 1 from the Phoenix Flame, or 2 from our Brand and then 2 from Phoenix Flame because we get a Tiger Stripe Shugo trigger. So overall damage doesn't matter. The difference between 3 and 1 and 2 and 2 can be important based on how much armor your opponent has left. So our opponent still has Bonebreaker, Savage Sash, and Fleshbag to block 2 with. So I'm actually more incentivized to attack for 3 and 1, because even though Kayo has the Scabskin Leathers to cover up the Phoenix Flame damage, if Kayo blocked with Bonebreaker, Sash, Scowling Fleshbag, we still get 1 point of damage from that Searing Emberblade, rather than just letting Kayo give us Savage Sash and Bonebreaker to cover Brand with Cinderclaw and Phoenix Flame. So, Oath of Loyalty, pitch Brand for Searing Emberblade, attack with Rising Resentment, activate FaB, play the Phoenix Flame, then we can use our fealty, pitch Oath of Loyalty, play Art of Dragonfire from Arsenal, it becomes Draconic, so it gets its 2 damage on top of its 5. So overall we threaten 4, 7, 10, 11, 18 points of damage, but a 5-card 18 just isn't very good. So what if we instead block with Oath of Loyalty, and then we send Oath of Loyalty, Searing Emberblade, Rising Resentment, activate FaB for Phoenix Flame? Well, that's only 11 points of damage, but it's a 3-card 11, which sounds a lot better. The rate is slightly better, not significantly better, but we still get to keep a fealty, we keep our arsenal, It's even technically a 4-card 14 because we're counting the 3 points from blocking with Oath of Loyalty, which is still not incredible, but the fact that we are saving our fealty and keeping a 5-card hand, knowing that there are blues in our deck that are really going to let us easily get the value from Art of Dragonfire, tells me that I would rather just sit on my arsenal and my fealty and use these 4 cards. And the best way to use these 4 cards is to block with Oath of Loyalty, which brings us back to this E-Strike for 6 go again. I am not committed to blocking this because Kayo still has 2 cards, and this could easily just be Send Packing or Command and Conquer, which I would want to then block, or at least think about how to block that better. So I'm going to put Oath of Loyalty in front of Mandible Claw. This is kind of the best case scenario for us, where Kayo still doesn't get an arsenal, and we send out Oath of Loyalty. Now, Scowling Fleshbag exists. So if this Oath of Loyalty gets fleshbagged, I don't think it will, because Kayo still has 40 health, only has 4 cards, doesn't have an agility, is not, as far as I can imagine, setting up for some kind of big Blood Rush Bellow turn and just needs to live through the turn. But say Kayo does use the fleshbag when you're playing against Brute, knowing how to navigate your turn once the fleshbag is used is always important. So if we get fleshbag, we are not interested in just letting it happen because we would take an intellect penalty. If our Brand with Cinderclaw gets banished, then we're either playing our Rising Resentment and then ending our turn with an arsenal and a card in hand, which is bad, or we are pitching Rising Resentment to play Art of Dragonfire, which is not how I want to use my red. If our Rising Resentment gets banished, then we're kind of in the same spot. Well, we're either playing this card and then taking an intellect penalty, or we're pitching Brand for Art of Dragonfire, which I really don't want to do. So if we get fleshbagged, how I want to navigate this turn is to decide which of these 2 cards do I want at the end of my turn to arsenal. The answer is Rising Resentment. It's a red, it's a Draconic starter. So if we get fleshbagged here, I'm pitching Brand with Cinderclaw to Flamescale Furnace. I only make 1 resource, or net 1 resource out of that, but then I can use my fealty and play Art of Dragonfire, get my Rising Resentment back at the end of turn, and arsenal it. It isn't a great line, but it is the line I have available. We don't get blocked, so now our follow-up is going to be Searing Emberblade, and the reason that we are sending Searing Emberblade, again, is that I want to play around the fleshbag. This kind of doesn't matter, but if we get fleshbagged here, then I have the option to pitch Rising Resentment to the Flamescale Furnace, which will net a resource, and then I can send Art of Dragonfire. We could have done it the other way, where we send Rising Resentment first. That gets blocked by fleshbag. We pitch Brand with Cinderclaw to Flamescale Furnace. We net that same resource. So ultimately, this doesn't really matter, but just important to know what our bailout plan is. And we don't get fleshbagged at all, so we are just going to send the 3-card 11 that I described. We're not breaking our Mask of the Pouncing Lynx yet. Kayo still has way too much health for me to consider Pouncing Lynx here. I want to wait for Pouncing Lynx, which is valued at a minimum of 6. That is the value of Lava Burst plus Tiger Stripe Shuko, until 6 represents really like half or a third of Kayo's remaining life total, rather than a fifth, not even a fifth of Kayo's remaining life total. We're dealing with Pulping for 8 Dominate Go Again. I cannot block out the Pulping to take away Go Again. I am not expecting that I need to. Kayo doesn't have a floating resource, so Run Roughshod isn't even an option here. Kayo's lines are either going to be Arsenal this card in hand, pitch it to Mandible Claw, or discard it to make an Agility or a Might. Kayo has already triggered, so a windup here only makes 1 thing. So at a maximum, we're taking 11 points of damage. Do I care? How do I want this hand to play out? I want to play Ronin Renegade. I want to pitch Energy Potion to attack with Searing Emberblade. I want to play Brand with Cinderclaw. I want to activate FaB, pick up and play Phoenix Flame to get my Tiger Stripe Shuko trigger, and then I want to use Fealty to make Art of Dragonfire Draconic and play that, then Arsenal Salt the Wound. That is the best way to navigate this hand. But Lupine, you say. You could play the Brand with Cinderclaw to make the Art of Dragonfire Draconic and not have to waste your Fealty. I could do that, but the sequencing doesn't quite work out because I need the Brand to make FaB activation free. So if I played Ronin Renegade, pitched Energy Potion to attack with Searing Emberblade, played Brand with Cinderclaw, then played Art of Dragonfire, I cannot activate, well, I can activate FaB. I can't activate FaB after Ronin Renegade Searing Emberblade because I need my resource to play Art of Dragonfire. If I play Brand with Cinderclaw, I can't activate FaB and play the Phoenix Flame because the Phoenix Flame will take the Brand with Cinderclaw effect. So the follow-up to Brand has to be Art of Dragonfire, which doesn't have Go Again. So if I still have the Salt the Wound, I cannot pick up my Phoenix Flame because I would take an intellect penalty. If I block with Salt the Wound, then yeah, I can play out this line where I pick up the Phoenix Flame and then arsenal it, but let's think about how much damage that's doing. 3, 6, 7, 14. I get a 4-card 14 or a 5-card 17, and neither of those are really worth losing value to put a Phoenix Flame in my arsenal. Instead, what if I take the line that I described, which uses fealty? We go 4, 6, 7, 9, 16. We get a 4-card 16 and then arsenal a finisher. That sounds way better. That's a much better rate, and we're putting Assault in arsenal, which we can play on a later turn, maybe setting up a double finisher with Dragon's Gale of Flight Path and Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So all of this is to say that I'm not going to block this pulping, because I want these 5 cards with the intention of playing 4 of them, and then arsenaling the 5th one. Here, even though I'm not playing Salt the Wound, it is worth more to me in my arsenal than it is on the board. Now, could we play Salt the Wound? Could we do Ronin Renegade, Searing Emberblade, Brand with Cinderclaw, activate 5 for Phoenix Flame, play Salt the Wound? We could, but we don't have to make that decision now, because if we are taking this line where we break fealty to make our Art of Dragonfire Draconic, both of those things will happen after we pitch the E-Pot, play the Brand, activate FaB, play the Phoenix Flame. So really just based on how Kayo blocks, then we can decide if we're going to play our Salt or play our Art of Dragonfire. I had just talked on the last turn about how we play around Fleshbag here. I've looked at this line a lot, and the answer is we really don't. The only card from our hand that we want to get banished to the Fleshbag is Salt the Wound, and we don't have a way to set it up if Kayo blocks with Fleshbag on Chainlinks 1 or 2. We just have to hope we get lucky. There's no Flamescale Furnace, there's no FaB line that we can take that gives us that resource to pay for Art of Dragonfire, that also doesn't give us an intellect penalty and make sure that the card we do want in our arsenal is in our arsenal. So we just have to bank on Kayo being at a high enough life total that he doesn't feel the need to use Fleshbag, and that does seem to be the case. The Art of Dragonfire gets blocked out. We don't even have the option of breaking Pouncing Lynx and breaking Flight Path, but that turn went the way that we wanted it to, where we just got to deal a bunch of damage, strip cards from Kayo's hand, and arsenal the Salt the Wound, and now we draw into a hand that is really good. We get to send Rising Resentment, pitch Energy Potion for Demonstrate Devotion, play Blaze Headlong, attack with the Emberblade, activate 5 for Phoenix Flame, play Salt the Wound, which gets a Tiger Stripe Shuko trigger because we only played one other card with 2 power or less. We want this entire hand. It doesn't block well even if we didn't, and Swing Big doesn't have an on-hit that I care about. There is no follow-up to this, so I'm going to block it with Flamescale Furnace because we are getting low. 9 would take us to 17, and even though Kayo only has 4 cards in hand, he still has Savage Sash and has not seen a Blood Rush Bellow yet. With him having Fleshbag to slow down our turn, there is absolutely a world where Kayo just draws a 4-card hand that does 17 damage or more, especially if we're talking Blood Rush Bellow, discard Beast Within. So getting our armor block is just smart. I really don't want to die with armor. So if I'm at 17 here, there is a chance that Kayo can high roll a 22 damage turn, and now I really regret not having the 2 life from my Flamescale Furnace. So let's just block with it. This game is going to be over in 2 or 3 turns anyway. I'm planning to go off Arsenal here, so I'm really not concerned about Command & Conquer or Send Packing, which are the only 2 cards that I kind of need armor to block. So this is fine. The sequencing here is going to be Rising Resentment into Demonstrate Devotion. If the Rising Resentment hits, it doesn't, but if it did, I would banish Blaze Headlong to it, not because I need Blaze Headlong to get a cost discount, but because I don't want it in my hand, so that when I do play Demonstrate Devotion, Kayo can't fleshbag it, because if he does, he just loses value. So here we play Demonstrate Devotion first, because between the two cards, Demonstrate and Blaze Headlong, if one of them gets fleshbagged, I really want it to be Blaze Headlong. I want Blaze Headlong in my arsenal instead of Demonstrate Devotion because it's cheaper to play, it's less restrictive if my red go again attack is Fire Tenant Strike first. So we send Demonstrate first just to get it out of our hand. If it does get blocked by Fleshbag, whatever. It does some damage, we want to play this Blaze Headlong, but if it doesn't, great. Am I looking at Mask of the Pouncing Lynx here? Currently, no. We could break Pouncing Lynx and find Assault the Wound, meaning that we don't need to play the one from our arsenal. We could find Lava Burst, and then have the option to use our Dragon Scalar Flight Path. But it kind of depends on what Kayo's blocks are. I'm not looking at using Pouncing Lynx yet, because I have a finisher. But so far, Kayo is taking a lot of damage. He's taken 3 hits so far. If this Phoenix Flame hits, and I'm not expecting it to because Kayo still has armor, but if this Phoenix Flame hits, I will break Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. And my target is going to be Lava Burst. And the reason I'm using Lava Burst instead of Salt the Wound is because of Dragon Scalar Flight Path. It can only be used on a Draconic attack. I do have Fealty to make a Salt the Wound Draconic, but we have 4 hits on the chain. Salt the Wound gets the Tiger Stripe Shuko trigger and attacks for 7. Lava Burst attacks for 6, so it's only a difference of 1 point of damage. Neither of those lines threaten lethal because Kayo still has armor to block with, and I have to use my Fealty. So I am valuing Fealty at more than 1 point of damage because we have Art of Dragonfires that deal an extra 2 points of damage if they're Draconic. We have Art of Dragon Blood that gets go again and discounts our Draconic attacks if it is Draconic. So we are using our Flight Path to put this turn together, but we are not going to use our Fealty to do it. And we get him with Salt the Wound for 7. We have dealt a significant amount of damage to Kayo. And we get an Erase Face out of his hand, which I am much more afraid of than Bare Fangs. Our hand here is extremely linear and extremely resilient to Scowling Fleshbag because it is either a 4-card 13 or a 3-card 10. There are no on-hits, there's nothing that says we need to block this Bare Fangs to play around the Fleshbag, get bad cards out of our hand before we potentially have to stick them into our arsenal. The only thing that really matters here is, are we leading with Rising Resentment or Brand with Cinderclaw? I think it should have been Rising Resentment. So this is my one play this game that I disagree with. If I'm having Brand or Rising in my arsenal after a Fleshbag, I would rather have it be Brand. But if it is the Rising Resentment, that's fine too. It's a red Draconic starter. We're going to lose one of these 2 cards to the Fleshbag. It is the Rising Resentment, which is a lucky break for us. That is the better card for us to lose. There's no reason to lose 2 points of damage, right? If we pitch Display Loyalty to Flamescale Furnace to make sure that our Rising Resentment is what ends up getting banished, that 1 resource pays for Phoenix Flame, which deals 1 point of damage instead of 3, and between Rising Resentment and Display Loyalty, if Display is what gets stuck in our arsenal, I mean, that's fine too. We are very likely to draw a Draconic starter, so having it be Display Loyalty in our arsenal is fine, which means that we are just pushing damage. This line threatens lethal. Kayo can block with a card from hand or Savage Sash, but if he uses Sash here, that means the Sash is only worth 3 points of damage overall instead of whatever it would be with Wild Ride, Pulping, Blood Rush Bellow. It is a much better value proposition for us. We got our Rising Resentment back, we put it into Arsenal, the hand that we draw into is fine. Breaking Point doesn't really have text, so we see even Kayo pitching the Blood Rush Bellow. So if we did not get the Savage Sash there, if we had taken the lesser line that deals 3 fewer points of damage, to guarantee that we put Rising Resentment into our arsenal, then we'd probably just lose the game, because Kayo gets to play Blood Rush Bellow and then use Savage Sash, and is threatening at least 12 points of damage, which we could cover with armor, but then it puts us into Reckless Swing range. So that really did pay off, just saying variance doesn't matter, either of these cards are good in our arsenal. So we've got a Pulping coming in for 7 with Go Again Dominate. There is only one follow-up to this line, which is Mandible Claw. It could be Arsenal, it could be Discard Windup, but the only one that we care about is Mandible Claw, because we have the cards and the chain links to threaten lethal on Kayo's turn and just kill him. At a minimum, our turn is Brand with Cinderclaw, pitch Energy Potion for Searing Emberblade, play Rising Resentment from Arsenal, activate FaB to pick up and play Phoenix Flame. That is 4 chain links, each one threatens lethal damage. Kayo has to give us his entire hand. So how do we now navigate this Pulping for 7? As long as we stay above 2 life, we're probably fine because we don't just die to Reckless Swing. But I also have enough cards in my hand that I can stay above 4 life so that I don't die to the 2 Reckless Swing line, which is possible if Kayo has a Reckless Swing in arsenal and a Reckless Swing in hand with 3 6-power attacks. He could just kill us from 4, so I do want to stay above 4, which is possible with my life lead, the fact that I have armor, and my cards in hand. But I don't need to use them all now. I can block with Shelter from the Storm, take 3 points of damage, and if Kayo then attacks with Mandible Claw, I can cash in my armor to block 3 and stay at 7. If Kayo discards this last card or arsenals it, then I stay at 7, but I still have the armor. Not that any of it really matters. Kayo doesn't have the ability to block for 1, so the fact that Shuko pushes Phoenix Flame up to 2 points of damage kind of doesn't matter anymore. Importantly, we get to keep Breaking Point, because now instead of sending 4 chain links off of 3 cards, we get to send 5 chain links off of 4 cards, and that is guaranteed to deal lethal no matter what Kayo has. So now we're just going through the motions. The sequencing here doesn't particularly matter, so long as we still have 1 resource available to play out Breaking Point, but even if we had to arsenal it here, we were successful in stripping Kayo's hand. We would just try again on our next turn, but instead we get to just throw Breaking Point and win. So that's the game. Pretty successful one for our little FaB deck here. I was just particularly impressed with the fact that I actually agreed with most of my past decisions. Usually it doesn't happen, so it does mean that at least at the time I was piloting this deck pretty well. FaB has some really bad numbers compared to a deck like Aurora. We saw a 3-card 3 in the first hand because I just didn't draw a starter. So the fact that FaB can draw the wrong half of his deck first is really bad to have to navigate. We also had not a great follow-up to that, just based on Brand the Cinderclaw Yellow not triggering Plays Headlong, Breaking Point not being online. Loyalty Beyond the Grave did exactly what we played to do, but the downside was we never drew a second one. So after that we started to get going, but you can see how this deck does have some awkward turn cycles. You can also see how it threatens a 5-card 28, which is a really good rate, and we didn't even need to commit to it until we realized that Kayo was going to just take some damage and try to set something up. But overall, I think this deck has some legs. I know Sam Dando is experimenting with it too. Hopefully you are enjoying it and having some success with it. I think there's still tuning to make. There's still adjustments that we can make to make the deck function better, but overall, not expecting to see a lot of this at Pro Tour London, but hey, maybe I'll be wrong. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something from it. If so, be sure to head jab that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you have not already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free, it helps me out a lot. I have a Blue Sky, a Discord, and a Patreon, links to which are in the video description below. A Patreon subscription at the Arc Lightning tier or higher will get you the matchup guide for this deck and all of my decks forever. I'll be back later this week with more daily FaB gameplay and more FaB gameplay, so until then, take care.